As I've mentioned, I've been here before, but this is my return to Victoria, and I'm so happy to be here tonight to share with you what I've been so passionate about for the last 15 years. In particular, some of the new research that I've done over the course of the last few years in terms of positive leadership. So to put things in context, here's the system that I'm addressing tonight. In particular, I'm going to deep dive into the concept of positive psychology and why it's important for your own personal development and the development of your teams, in particular your project teams. So this is the area here that I'm looking at. And in combination with things like project inquiry and best practices in leadership, I put together this system. So when David and I were talking about potential topics for tonight, we thought that that would be a good start, is the foundation of positive leadership and positive psychology for your own practice. So here's a definition of positive psychology. So it's making people happier by increasing their positive emotions, decreasing their negative emotions. Pretty simple, huh? Well, actually it's not, because this particular branch of psychology only started up in about 1998. Okay, so for most of the history of psychology, psychologists and scientists have been studying what is wrong with people. Positive psychology, on the other hand, when we started up about 18 years ago, focuses on what is right with us. And how do we work on that? How do we work on our strengths to make it even better? With basically the theory that it's a lot easier to build on strengths and positivity than negativity. So let me put it in an example. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, I'd like you to do so. If not, you can just stare down a little bit. I'd like you to think about a child, if you have children, back when they were 4 or 5 years old, and you're playing with that child. If you've not had children, that's okay. Maybe you have a niece or a nephew. Okay? And if that's not possible, think of a pet, yours or someone else, and just enjoying that moment. Go back in time. And what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Okay. Anybody share? Want to share? Over here, I can hear you. How does that feel? Good. So, yeah, we got a nod here. Good. Sometimes I hear warm, fuzzy. Okay. Now, same drill. Again, close your eyes if you're comfortable. Look down. And think about your very first or your very favorite song. What's your favorite song? Okay, you're playing in your head. If you're close to a piece of paper, I would ask you to write that down. Write down your favorite song. Take a moment to do that. Okay, I'm going to close my eyes. When I open my eyes, the first person I make eye contact with, I will ask to stand up here with me and sing that song as loud as you can for the rest of the audience. And this is usually where I pick the person that's trying hardest not to look at me. So we have Jennifer. Sure. Yeah, sure. Can you come on up with me? Come on, Jennifer. How are you feeling right now?
Great.
Great? Yeah. You must be a singer then.
No.
No? But you're okay with this exercise, and you would give it a go if you had to?
If I had to.
If you had to? Okay, so...
How good are you as a singer?
I'm not that great, actually. I'm not that in French. But I was going to offer to go first, but...
You go first.
No, actually, I'm not that crazy.
Okay. We're not going to sing, are we?
We're not going to sing, no. But, so you're not afraid at all. No fear right now, you're good.
Well, I was hoping you were going to be my backup singer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Now, anybody else feeling a little bit anxious when I gave those instructions? Yeah? Show of hands, please. Good. Okay, so almost half of you are not liars.
I did raise my hand.
You did raise. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, and thanks for being interested in sport. Well, a bit of a demonstration how fast our emotions can change. Right? We can go from a moment of what we call positive emotion, some call it positive emotion attractors, and given a different set of instructions in the very same block of 3 minutes, we can get into a negative state of emotions. At one time, some of you may even feel extreme stress with something like that, especially if I would have brought you up here, and might be feeling a little bit nuts. Okay, so that's an acronym that I have up on the slide right now. And nuts stands for the novelty of the experience, the event, the exercise. So Jennifer, I'm not sure, have you ever sung in front of 80 people before? No. So that's a new experience, right? Something she's not gone through. Unpredictability. Sounds like she might have been willing to give it a bit of a try, but not sure how it's going to sound. Maybe it's better with a background singer, who knows? And then there's the threat to ego. Are they going to like me? Are they going to hate me? And then finally, sense of control, or the lack thereof. So when you're out of control, there are occasions where you just feel that you just can't do it. And the stress level goes up, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of things start happening. Our range of vision narrows. We feel anxious. We have a hard time sleeping. We don't eat properly. We won't exercise, and so on. So what's the antidote? Well, this is where we're going to start talking about positive emotions. So here's the top 10, according to Barbara Fredrickson, who's a famous researcher and author in this area. So the top 5 are the most popular, probably experience 75 to 80% of the time that we do feel happy or in a good mood. So joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope. On the other side, you have pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and the last one, love. Interesting thing about love, it's a two-way emotion. All the others can be done by yourself, basically, but love is a two-way emotion, typically with another person, or sometimes even with your pets, because they do respond to you in terms of the resonance. You can have that loving relationship. So focusing on these particular emotions is one of the best ways to avoid stress. And here are some facts about positivity and positive emotions. The first one is that positivity, positive emotions feel good. I mean, how many folks here prefer to feel bad compared to feeling good? Well, nobody. That's great. You're in the right room then, and in the right field. It changes how your mind works. In particular, I mentioned the field of vision. Okay, so positivity, positive emotions, allows you to see just about 180 plus around you. When you're in a bad mood, you're angry, or you're feeling other negative emotions, that will narrow down to about 30 degrees. Tunnel vision, you've heard that term before, right? So that's usually triggered by negative emotions. It transforms your future. What you think about most today is what you would likely become in the future. So if it's positive, you will have a positive future. If it's negative, it tends to go to the negative future. It puts brakes on negativity. So in neurology, in neuroscience, we talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. So basically, kind of the same thing, negative, positive, what I'm talking about. So positive, when you're thinking positive, you cannot think positive and negative at the same time. So if you focus on the positive, you are in fact reducing stress and negativity. It obeys a tipping point. The more you invite positive emotions into your life, the easier it is to attract even more and create even more. And then finally, the good news is that you can increase your positive emotions on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and for the rest of your life. The key ratio is 3 positive experiences for every 1 negative experience. If you can monitor that on a daily basis, in fact, if you go online and look up Love 2.0 or positivity, Barbara Fredrickson has a tool that you can use. You can go online on a daily basis and see where you're at that particular day in terms of your positive to negative feeling ratio. The optimum, she says, is 6 plus. 3 is a minimum. The reason that 3 is a minimum is because negative emotions are 4 times more powerful than positive emotions. That's how we were wired. Okay, so going back 10,000 years, Negative emotions is what allowed us to survive. Okay, so we respond, we fight, or we freeze. Okay, so that's it. So I'm not saying that negative emotions are not important. They're not important. They're crucial for our survival. However, if we want to thrive and grow, we should focus more on positive emotions. So why does that matter to project managers? Well, here's some very interesting research that's been done by Gallup in 2017. They do this exercise every year where they survey businesses all over the world. Okay? How many of you have heard of Gallup? So quite a few, that's awesome. And what they're doing here is they're comparing the top 25% of engaged workplaces to the bottom 25%. So imagine quartiles, if you will. So the top 25%, the very most engaged teams, there's 50% in the middle. We're not going to count those. But we're going to evaluate the top compared to the bottom. Okay? And this is what they found out. So when I manage a project, when I manage a team, even operations, there are basically three metrics that I look at to see how we're performing. Number one, what's my level of absenteeism in that current year? Number two, what's my turnover? Number three, what's our productivity? Look at the numbers up here. We've got absenteeism in the top 25% quartile are more than 40% lower than the worst. 40%. This is statistics across North America. In terms of turnover, depending on if you have a high turnover environment or low turnover environment, anywhere from 25% to say 60% lower turnover. That's a lot of people not leaving compared to the worst teams. And then finally, number down here, higher productivity, lower number but still impressive. What really blew me away was the 70% lower accidents, lower safety incidents. How many folks here have like construction type project management practices? So a few. Like, isn't that amazing if you could, by having a more engaged team, you could actually improve your health and safety by that percentage. Remarkable, I think. So how do we change the balance? How do we promote more positive emotions in our life compared to negative emotions? So we want to attract more joy, more inspiration, more hope, and so on, and reduce stress, anger, and fear. Well, the first place to start is what we call intentional change theory. And this is a ratio that I picked up recently in a movie on Netflix. People seen the movie The Happiness? It's a great little film, Netflix free, so if you want to check it out. But this is what they were talking about. This has been validated now through other studies that I've come across, is 50% of our happiness potential is hardwired. Okay? It got passed down to us by our parents, so it's how we're wired, how our genetics are formed, and so on. Only about 10 to 15% of the impact is due to the environment. Okay? Your job, your family, your lifestyle, and so on. Fully, 35 to 40% of happiness or positive emotions or anything else is a choice. 40%. That's amazing. That you can literally change your life with your will, just by wanting it and making a decision. So I'm going to share with you a few tools that I like to use. So in particular, this one I call the perfect day. So one of the ways to attract more positive emotion in your life is to have a daily practice. Okay, so think about what your perfect day might look like. And especially if you can focus on that in the morning instead of getting up out of bed, because that's your first stressful event of the day, and hitting the shower, more stress, right? And dealing with the kids and making breakfast and rushing out of the house and driving home in traffic and so on. Why don't you get up an hour earlier and ease into the day? That's what I like to do. That's my perfect day. Is I'll spend my first hour, I call it the hour of power, is first of all, I usually get up around 5:30, 6 o'clock. I have two little puppies that sleep with us. They wake me up, so I don't use an alarm. I don't read the newspaper. What I do is I draw myself a nice hot bath and I meditate for the next 45 minutes to an hour with a a large glass of water. I happen to like Red Bull, so it's probably not the healthiest thing, but I think it's a nice way to wake up. So I do my meditation, I do a little yoga for the back of my neck, just some easy stretching. And then if I have time when I dry up, I'll do yoga for about 45 minutes, 30 minutes to 45 minutes if I have a chance. Even if I can get in a quick 10 minutes or 20 minutes, that's wonderful too. Okay? So that's part of my routine. Then I'll have breakfast, then I'll go to work. So the point of that, for me, that preparation in the morning allows me to show up at my very best. Okay, so instead of rushing into the day and getting angry and everything else, I'm just cool, relaxed. And what's important about that is that emotions are contagious. Okay, so therefore, how I show up at work as the boss, as the leader, is important because it resonates with other people, and they're going to pick up on that. Guess what? Happy boss, happy employees, happy customers. Isn't that a great formula? So that's my perfect day. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be your perfect day. The whole purpose is for you to invent your own perfect day and live it as often as you can. And there's a tipping point there as well. If you can reach a level of 35, 40, 50%, it begins to get natural, you get better at it, and it's even more fun. So a couple more things. Learning adventures, okay, is just thinking about something fun that's coming up is really good for you. So planning a learning adventure is awesome. And then also I encourage people to have a personal learning plan, including a very strong personal vision. Now I have a few minutes left. I'm going to just share a couple of tips for you for your project teams. Okay, so these are some techniques that I've learned about, some of them I've developed. The first one is inspiring conversations, is having the ability to talk with your people on your team and try to keep the conversation really positive. Even if you feel them sort of sliding towards the negative, how do you bring them back into a vision, the future, hope, and talking about those things rather than getting into, okay, this is what we're going to do this minute, the next minute this, and so on, right? So having an inspiring conversations. Strengths interview. If any of you have learned about the strengths movement, again, that's a Gallup tool. Marcus Buckingham is a big name in the strengths movement. And there's a tool in there where you can have a conversation with your employee. There's 10 questions in the book. You just basically go through it. What do you think your strengths are? What do you think your weaknesses are? What's the best recognition you've ever gotten? Okay, so a really great way to have a positive conversation around positive emotion. Shared values and vision. Okay, so making sure that you talk about values in your team. Making sure that you set the goalposts. And even better, if your team has helped co-create that goalpost, where it is that you want to be in 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, and so on. Building on strengths, so having a practice of inventing, creating work that suits the individual. Okay, so instead of trying to fix what's wrong with their teammates, why not assign the work that they're going to be really, really great at? Okay, so that's a really great way. And then finally, creating what we call practice fields. Okay, so practice fields is a place where I would give an example, say an offsite with your team to create conversation, dialogue, okay? And then that way there, you can make it change really stick. So that's my time for tonight. Really happy to be here. And I will be around for the rest of the evening if you want to come chat with me. I've got some business cards over here. And I'd love to keep in touch. And have a wonderful evening. Thank you.